Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for coming out. We're already into June. It's getting to be summertime just about. So really appreciate everybody coming out for this meeting this evening. We'll go ahead and get started with our agenda and start with reviewing and approving the minutes for May 19th. We are also going to approve the May 23rd informational meeting minutes that I neglected to put on the agenda. So with that, do I have a motion for?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of May 19th, 2022.
Second it.
Any discussion on the minutes?
I have one. When I uploaded the minutes, for some reason, when I converted it from Word to a PDF, it grabbed an April 21st date for the top, so I've now corrected that, so it does say May 19th.
Online?
Online.
Yep.
I don't know why, but
Okay. Well, this looks like it's got the right dates on the top.
right, it does now, but it didn't, so
Yep.
apologize for the confusion.
All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes for May 19th?
I have some changes, please.
Okay. What do you see that needs to be adjusted?
Specifically with the items that I read at the meeting at the last meeting, I had asked that they be included in the minutes. There was just very little that was included, and I would like the excerpts from the rules and procedures and the town personnel policy to be written out exactly how I had them. And I would like to request again that the excerpts be included and that the actions of Tristan and Zach at the 5/5/22 meeting were unacceptable and against the rules and procedures and personnel policy, and therefore they should be formally disciplined, be included in the minutes as well. And that's very important that I want that in the minutes.
I feel that the way the minutes are written expresses what
We discussed.
the intent of what was discussed and what you brought forward. I don't feel that they need to be changed, and we will be addressing those comments on the agenda later this evening.
It doesn't, the minutes do not say anything about what I have asked of those, the policy, the personnel policy and the procedures, and that should be looked at. It does not mention anything that I have asked for formal discipline.
I would say that that's incorrect. The minutes that I have right here do indicate that in the second paragraph under open to the public and other
Right, but it
business.
doesn't say why.
It's just a review, like, it's just there's select board minutes. It's
Yep.
not a
I would say too that,
story per line, whatever. It's just a basic.
You can have them reviewed, but that's very safe, though, just make sure you're following the rules.
I know other things have previously been asked to be included in the minutes, and they have been included in the minutes. So I just feel that this is important. This is not a laughing matter, and I want this to be included in the minutes.
So,
And I also want to mention that the minutes disclose that there was a letter received from Ellen Katie. And however, that letter was not read after a letter from Sally Blair was read. So why was Ellen Katie's letter not read?
So the board.
that is the board's decision and discretion as to whether we read correspondence to the board specifically. The letter that was submitted did not include any business that needed to be conducted by the select board. However, the other correspondence that we received did have business that needed to be conducted by the select board, which included the understanding and figuring out how the mowing of the Scott Memorial on 302 needed to be handled. So what I would say is, we do have an agenda item on the agenda later this evening to discuss the complaint that you filed. And I feel that the information here in the minutes is adequate to cover what was discussed. And I would refer anybody also to the video of the meeting if they want specifically what was said.
Oh, you could have the minutes reviewed by someone familiar with the open meeting law and make sure that they conform. You know,
Yeah, we could possibly do that, but
Yeah.
there's select board minutes, that the select board is a review of the meeting per se.
what are the minutes? What is supposed to be in them?
It doesn't have to be verbatim.
All the motions and
It has to include what was topics that were discussed. It has to include all the motions that were moved, seconded, and voted on. But it does not need to be a word for word verbatim of every topic covered.
But if you wanted an opinion that confirmed
And
that.
what I would say is that, you know, the format to the minutes have changed since the new secretary has taken over as the secretary of the select board. Specifically because what was being done previously were honestly more detail and more work that needed to be conducted. And I'm guilty of it too, because I wrote some of those minutes, not understanding what was required. And so the format is correct. The information for these minutes are correct as well. And, you know, I think there's nothing wrong with us moving forward with approving them.
I agree.
The only thing that concerns me, and I wanted it to be clear in the minutes, was the reason that I was asking for the formal discipline was that the two individuals mentioned, the actions were unacceptable and against the rules and personnel policy, and that's not indicated in the minutes.
See, we're not getting into that right now also. We're talking about the minutes, that's another discussion, and you're also addressing the board, not the town versus employees and so on and so forth. So it's not a personnel issue.
But I was
So-
addressing the select board with this specific issue, and I still think it should be included in the minutes. But because the minutes that show no indication as to, why did Lise bring this up about wanting these excerpts read from the minutes? Okay, it says that Lise read an excerpt from the rules of procedure and the town personnel and would like Zach and Tristan formally disciplined. Well, why would she like them formally disciplined?
Well, to be honest, Lise, we're going to discuss it later this evening. I'm still kind of baffled as to why there's formal discipline, but that again is part of the agenda later this evening.
Okay.
What I'm going to say is that the minutes as read, and I will put it to a vote for the select board, but I feel that the minutes as written are acceptable. So with that, I'm going to call it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for May 19th, 2022, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. The minutes pass for May 19th. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the Select Board Informational Town Meeting as part of the revote for the 2022 budget.
I will second that.
Second, okay. Any discussion on the minutes from May 23rd? Okay.
You look good.
Yeah.
We are good, then I'll call to a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for the town informational meeting on May 23rd, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, they are approved, minutes are approved. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I think it looks good how we got
Yeah,
it.
I think you're good.
Unless, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we will begin with law enforcement updates on our law enforcement feasibility study that Dan and Deborah are working on. And want to introduce Trevor Whipple from VLCT, who's joining us who is, I don't want to speak out of turn, but you are the consultant for law enforcement related topics, correct?
That would be correct, yes, sir. Yeah.
We also have Tim Page.
And we also have
Tim Page.
Tim Page. Thanks for coming, Tim.
No problem.
So I guess, I want to start that, I think based off of the conversation we've had previously, there are really three directions that I feel like that we can go. The first one, and not in any preference of order, just the order that they are on my head, is that we consider a contract with Caledonia County Sheriff's Department to provide law enforcement for the town of Groton. Second would be that we would contract a law enforcement officer that is not the constable. The constable position would remain a civilian constable position to fulfill those regulatory requirements, administrative requirements. And the third is that we do nothing. Does that sound accurate?
Yes.
Well, what about appointing a civilian constable?
Well, and so I separate that a little bit, Deborah, because that's something that we need to do as part of kind of the regulatory administrative requirements. The I guess option 4 would be that we elect a constable, but I think we've already kind of determined that that's not necessarily feasible right now.
It would be an appointment. And then it would be what that person's going to do, what policies will
Correct.
govern what that person.
Right.
And that's what I think Trevor and Tim might,
Help us with.
Yep.
help
Okay.
us with.
Yeah, so the first one I want to kind of ask is Caledonia County. I know that we've done a little bit of research with some other towns about Caledonia County law enforcement and contracting them. I think, one, there's a lot of information that needs to be included and bolstered, I think, in any written contract that we sign with them. That's very specific. I think what they provided is not very specific right now. But I wanted to get kind of, feedback on that as a option, and how feasible that will be and how realistic it will be to meet, I think, the same number of hours of law enforcement patrolling that Jim Downing previously did as the constable. So I don't know if Tim or Trevor want to share their input.
I can give you a quick, how usually the sheriff's departments work, if you don't mind me stepping up.
Yeah.
That's fine.
When you contract with the sheriff's department, how that works is he comes up with a very general contract, and I'm not demeaning the sheriff's department by any stretch of the imagination. They do provide a service, and what they do is good. But the way that I see what the town is looking for, a law enforcement service, I don't think you're going to get that. When you get the contract, that usually it'll say we'll provide a service of a patrol for this many hours a week for the duration of the year for this amount of money. And it doesn't signify any time periods, when the person's going to be here or any of that. And the reason that they do that is because they can't guarantee those things. So if they were to come to you, if they were to come to Groton and say they got another one in Reigate and then they got another one up north, everybody wants them to be there on their holidays like July 4th, on Friday nights, on Saturday nights, and they can't do that. They can't do it for everybody. They don't have enough people. So what happens is a sheriff's department will usually have so many officers that can do a town patrol. And in the sheriff's department, a lot of the officers are level 2 certified. And there's different levels of certification for a police officer, and Trevor can tell you that a level 2 officer is limited in the scope of duties that he can do. He's limited in the type of investigations he can do. So if you're looking for somebody to come in and do burglaries, or somebody to come in and do domestics and stuff, that's not going to happen. They're going to come in here, they're going to do traffic. If something happens while they're here, sometimes they do get involved, but most of the time they'll call the state police to come take care of it. Some of the guys aren't trained well enough to do that, so kudos to them that they don't take it on. So, but if they're a level 3 officer, of course, they can do that. They can do the whole gamut. But, and a lot of times they still won't do that because it ties them up. If they're only putting 2 hours in your town, they get into a burglary investigation that takes 20 hours in 1 week. You've used up a lot of your contract. So you're not going to be able to spread that out over the whole year. So I know you guys are looking for it, and I'm not trying to, and I don't want to demean the sheriff's department. I don't want to tell you they're not good at what they do, because they do a good job when they're here. But it's just, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get. I mean, when you say you want to be specific in your contract, it probably won't happen.
Okay.
You're probably not going to be able to be that specific. It's going to be, I'll supply an officer when I have an officer to come down, and that could be Wednesday from 1 to 3. That could be,
And we get
Tuesday.
charged from when they leave to the time they get here to the time they get back, so it eats up.
right.
a lot of our-
So it eats up. And so some of the sheriff's departments will take that. They have a fund where they can take and pay for that deputy's travel time. And sometimes you can get that in your contract, say, we don't want to pay for travel time, and they'll say, okay. But you really have no way to track whether you're paying for their travel time or not. Because they're not going to call you up and say, we're going to be in your town from this time to this time on this day. Doesn't happen. All of a sudden, you're going to see a cruiser here. He may be here for an hour and leave, may be here for 2 hours and leave. Or they may be getting near the end of their contract, they haven't put enough hours down in your town, they're gonna do an 8-hour day down here. And so, that is just the reality of how it works, okay? So I don't wanna see you guys spend money for something that you think you're getting that you're not gonna get. If you want a police presence now and then, if you want them just for a police presence to come in, slow traffic down, things of that nature, then yes, that's a good idea. It's an alternative. But as a police presence in regards to drug investigations, burglaries, the whole gamut.
We don't have any of those here.
No, there's none of that here. But yeah, that's basically how that works. And I worked for a sheriff's department for 5 years, so I do know. Once I retired from the state police, I did that for 5 years just to keep certified and stuff. So I do know how they work.
Are they all the same?
I
we've been talking about Caledonia, but what about Orange?
What about who?
We've been talking about Caledonia, but what about Orange?
Orange. I work for Orange, so that is exactly how they work.
So that answered that.
Yeah. I was one of those guys going from town to town for them. But Caledonia County, and right now, Caledonia County is going through a transition. The current sheriff is leaving in November. He has very, very few deputies. They can't even man the Caledonia County Fair this year, and the year before they couldn't do it. He's really hurting for people. I don't know when you'd even get anybody down here.
So it sounds like that's a waste of money, and we wouldn't get our best bang for our
Yeah,
buck.
as a citizen of the town, I would say.
And that's what we're
I would
looking at,
say
that's
no,
what your
don't.
opinion.
I would
Now,
say don't.
that all being said, we seem to have, obviously a speed problem during the day and whatever, and we talked about putting the signs up, we're working on the signs that show your speed, blah, blah, blah. Do you think that's a well worth thing to do for a town to?
They work to a degree, right? They do have an effect on your honest drivers. The ones that come through town, they don't realize, oh crap, I better slow down.
Yep.
Didn't even realize I was going that fast. And you only want them in your lower speed zones because you don't want kids coming through and trying to see how fast they can make the sign go.
Right.
So because that happens too. So they do slow traffic down. So
Okay.
I think that would be a bad investment. One each way on Main Street.
Which we already own them, we're
We
just trying to.
trying to reposition them, yeah.
trying to get 'em
Yeah,
set.
I don't think that's a bad idea at all. It will help with the traffic problem or the speed problem in town. But as far as the state police right now are 40 people down.
Yeah.
They have 40 empty positions, so they are hurting for people. The police field as a whole right now is experiencing a hell of a manpower crisis because nobody wants to be a cop anymore.
Well, I can't blame them.
Yeah, because of all the stuff that's going on. So, as an example, I have 2 positions open. up in St. Jay, actually 3, I got one in the academy. I've put out advertisement for the other 2 positions. I got 4 applications, scheduled interviews, not one of them sure. So, I mean, that's how tough it is right now out there. It's insane. So, you know, I know you've talked about hiring a part-time person, you know, maybe another police officer that would do something here part-time. Then you've got liability issues with the town that he works for, as far as where his training was, how well is he trained, what kind of liability is this town taking on, do you know that officer, how well do you know that officer, you know, those types of things. So,
So
The
your
state
personal
police
recommendation as a law enforcement and field and whatever, as a town, and you live here too?
this is mine. Trevor may have a different point of view, but my best idea for everybody is to be good neighbors. You know, I mean, if you see something, say something, you know, and call the Staples. That's their job. They've got to come to this town. They respond here.
We
If
have
you
some
call-
local
Yeah,
guys.
and yes, I noticed, where I see somebody living,
Right,
yeah, there's one right down Reigate too,
Yeah.
at the Leaf Farm there. So, I mean, yeah, you know, be good neighbors, call stuff in. If you see something that you don't like, call them. Say, hey, this is going on. You know, they may not come right away. It may take them a while to get here, but they'll get here. They, you know, they mean well. They want to help the community. So.
I was thinking about this the other day. We have this, I think there's sort of a notion that you call the state police and they don't come, or they take a super long time. And I thought, well, is that true?
There are
Maybe it's
some-
not true. How could we find out? How many times have they been to Groton? How long did it take for them to get there? What kinds of things did they respond to? Maybe we would find out that we're being much better served than we think we are.
I think you could call the station commander in St. Johnsbury. His
St.
name
Johnsbury.
Owen Ballinger. He was just appointed the station commander up there.
Okay.
And he would come talk to you guys in a minute. He'd be glad to come down, talk to you, and tell you what they can do, what they can't do. There are some things that they're not going to respond to now just because they don't have the manpower. So the more
Pressing.
yeah, you know, when they need to be here, they will be here, you know, but if it's something that can wait a day, you know, for them to get here, to the person, it may seem like it needs to be done right away, but it may be something that doesn't need to be done right away. They'll get here, they'll do it, but it may take them a day or so, you know, something like that. So, and he can explain that to you a lot better than I can,
Yeah.
because he knows what his manpower is, he knows what he can and can't do. Nice guy.
What was his
I'm
name
sure-
again?
Owen Ballinger.
Okay, thank you.
And if you give him a call up there, it's 748-3331.
3331.
Yeah, and he can help you out. I'm sure he'd come to a meeting and just fill you in on what they can and can't do.
Great.
But I think that'd be your best bet, just as a citizen of the community, I would,
Okay.
that'd be what I would say.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks,
Tim.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
I have another meeting to go to, though, sorry.
Okay.
Have fun.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we're sorry you have another meeting without you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd
Nice to hear from the horses.
like to maybe get Trevor's input.
Yeah.
Pardon the mask, my wife has some recent health issues, so if
Okay.
you can't hear me, let me know and I'll speak louder, although I'm known for speaking loud. For folks that haven't met me, I'm a full-time employee with Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I've been there about 3.5 years now, and so, you know, my job is to serve all our communities. So, you know, my presence here is because you're members of VLCT and you have insurance through Passive, our insurance side of the house. So, my kind of experience before coming to VLCT was I was, like Tim, a police officer in Vermont for 38 years, 23.5 in the city of Barrie. I was their chief for 7.5. Then I went to the city of South Burlington and was the chief there for 12 years. So been around a little bit. Not an expert, but I know a fair amount, don't know everything. I would, a lot of different angles to come from, and I know there's been a couple email exchanges, just kind of information seeking. I think I hear what you're saying, and that is how do we get law enforcement presence in Groton? Do we need it, and how do we get it? It's really a tough time right now because I think historically if a town doesn't have their own police department, there's the constable issue, we'll talk about that last. But in some communities, you know, they've reached out to state police. That's not, as Tim says, not available now. You know, the town of Waterbury, it did work for them. They have a trooper assigned to them, but they're not doing that anymore. So state police for extra presence are off. That's not possible. You have already considered and I think seen some of the challenges with the sheriff's department. And I agree with Tim. I think that when you look at engagement with the sheriff's department, they're a business. They operate a business. They have to cover costs. So when you talk to them, you know, as I tell communities that ask this, you're the customer. You're looking to buy a service. So you tell them what you want. Now, they may not provide the level of service you want. As Tim mentioned, you know, you might have a vision. We want somebody here Friday from 4 to 6 and Saturday from 7 to 9. And the sheriff might say, can't guarantee you those hours. What I'll tell you is we'll be there 20 hours a week and I'll figure out when it is based on staffing. Well, that might not work for you. So that's a challenge. As Tim said too, the town of St. Albans was getting police services from the city of St. Albans. Then they switched to the sheriff. So we worked with them on their contract and they were able to, because the sheriff was willing, to get some pretty good details in their contract about what level of training the officer would have. That the town would actually be able to meet the officer before they were assigned to say, hey, we want to know who's coming to be in our town. And if there's a problem, if they don't work well with our town, maybe we want somebody else. We don't want you to just pick a name out of the hat. So they were able to do that. One of the challenges we see, because my primary objective is risk management at VLCT, is one of the challenges we do see if you did consider a sheriff's contract, and we are willing to review it, is that they carry a much lower level of insurance. We insure all your municipal workers here at the level of $10 million. So you have a $10 million insurance policy should you get sued. The sheriffs, historically, and I'm not saying all the time, but historically the sheriffs carry $1 million. So if something were to happen in your community with a sheriff that you're contracting with, and then ultimately they point the finger back to you folks as municipal officials and say, and you're responsible too, so we're going to name you in the lawsuit. The sheriff's office, unless they indemnify you and have an appropriate level of coverage, it could leave the town exposed to a higher level of risk. So what we ask towns, if you are going to consider contracting with the sheriff's department, is let our underwriters take a look at that and let us give you an opinion about, does it provide you folks in the town, your taxpayers, enough coverage? Or should you demand a higher level? And then we have talked a bit about, constables. And constables, in and of themselves, are challenging. And I think it sounds like you folks have already assessed that, is that to start from nothing, if you've got a civilian who wants to become a law enforcement constable, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. You don't have to pay for the training, the state pays for it, but you have to, depending on the arrangement you have with your constable, do you compensate them for their hours? And if so, it's a lot of hours.
Right.
And then if you take on again, and you did have Jim Downing for quite some time, if you take on again what we call a constabulary, that really makes you an ad hoc police department, to where now the town buys into the requirement of you got to have policies, you got to have hiring practices, you got to have some level of oversight, so it starts to grow a bit, and it also exposes you to potential liability, because now you've got somebody that has the legal authority to take away people's freedom, to enter on their property, to take human life. It's a bit of a challenge. And I don't know, I've heard mentioned here, somebody mentioned early on the contracting with another police officer, and I don't know, I'd have to do some research. I'm not sure you can just find a police officer somewhere and say, hey, come, we want to contract with you. I think you would probably have to make them an employee to get the appropriate liability coverage for them.
And of course, we're not set up to man and govern.
So what are you going to do? I mean, we have a lot of towns that have a law enforcement constable. I won't say a lot, but 20 or 30. And frankly, they keep me up at night. Not because they're intentionally doing anything wrong. It's just, it's difficult. You're 3 men who have day jobs, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
You got more than being select board members in the town of Groton. But if you had a law enforcement constable, you're responsible for him or her. It's your deal. You gotta make sure they're following the rules. You gotta make sure they're doing the right reports. And each year, it seems as though legislature adds another requirement. It's like, okay, if you're gonna be a cop, whether you're a constable or a town police officer, here's the new rule, here's the new policy, here's the new training.
Which, as a selectman personally and a taxpayer, I don't want to be involved with that. We all have enough to do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the way things were, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, that
Yeah.
when Jim was here, Zach would be the de facto police chief. Because
Did you know
somebody
that?
is in charge of the police department.
And it becomes.
Yeah, and it's the select board.
Correct.
And by, the chair of the select board is the police chief, or acts as that.
Yeah. Now, is your constable by charter right now, are they elected or appointed?
Elected.
That's yet another level of challenge, because if they're elected, they really don't have a boss. They answer to the taxpayer.
Correct.
You can help develop policy, but they can say, you know what, I'm elected. I answer to the taxpayers. I don't answer to you folks. So it becomes a bit of a push-pull. And fortunately, I think in every community, the elected constables have good relationships with the boards.
Right.
But that's why, in law, you're allowed to change it to an appointed. You have to have a
I
town
kind of
vote.
feel like it's a past kind of thing that's kind of, things have changed and times are changing, and so we're trying to make sure that we can protect the town, plus look out for the
Sure.
town's legalness and
Yeah.
make sure things.
Where did they go with qualified immunity training?
It's off, right now it's off, it's just a study.
Okay.
We were able to, the law enforcement agency, the league, we put a lot of time in, and what we were able to do was, and qualified immunity really it did not endanger the individual officer like the legislators thought it did.
Yep.
It really endangered kind of the communities, because if you didn't have qualified immunity, you could get sued more frequently for more reasons. But yeah, so qualified immunity, they're gonna do a study over the summer, and it'll probably be back in January, but it's off the table for right now.
So I guess I would ask you the same question I asked Tim, which would be, as a past law enforcement and blah, 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 and whatever, how do you best see for our best bang for our buck, or what's your opinion?
I think the time put you in a really tough spot.
Okay.
If you say, or your citizenry says, we want to see more badge and guns, we want to see more blue lights in our community for X reason. Right now, you've said law enforcement constable is off the table. I think the only other option is sheriff. But the sheriff is very limited as to what does that mean? What are you going to get for your dollar? Now, I still think that if you folks are saying, we still want to explore that, I do think there's some potential value in having a dialogue with the sheriff, saying, what could we negotiate? What does a contract look like? And they might flat out say, I'm going to tell you what you get. Okay, now you know what you're dealing with. Or maybe they're willing to negotiate and say, okay, tell us what you want. Yeah, maybe I can make that work. Now, I don't know if it's happened, but there is, there's statewide jurisdiction. I know that for the fair, the Caledonia County Fair, I mean, Lamoille and Orleans are coming in. So it does not necessarily, I think politically, because you're in Caledonia, I think all the other sheriffs would likely defer to Caledonia, talk to Caledonia. Well, if Caledonia wouldn't do it, then I suppose you could have a dialogue with Orange. Lamoille goes everywhere. Lamoille seems to have a really robust sheriff's office, and I see their cars all over the place.
Right.
But as you mentioned, I think some of your dollars ultimately could be eaten up with that travel time. They're going to cover their expenses.
And I mean, as far as what I hear from the town, it's mainly a speed issue through the daytime, whatever, here and there.
Yeah.
Not that we have a lot of, that I know of, huge criminal things.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot. I mean, and what I'll say is, I want everybody to understand. I think I've heard this from Trevor. I think now, and I've heard it from Tim. And I think I've heard it from a lot of places. Is we're not unique. Groton, Vermont, any state, any rural town has this same problem right now in America. There isn't the staffing. There isn't the ability to do what needs to be done. And I think, with the things that I've heard and seen from people over the last couple of months, the things that I've witnessed personally, with regards to, the issues that are, yes, there's a speed issue, and I think there's some things we can try to do kind of separate from law enforcement, but, one, I think a lot of the violence that we're seeing in rural towns across the country are drug-related. A very large portion of them are drug-related. And, dealing with drugs through law enforcement isn't the only option that we can look at. So, the big question around law enforcement is, what does work for a town like us? And honestly, right now, I think, and Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong in what you're saying, is it's going to be challenging for us to get even a small amount of law enforcement presence. We'll get some if we work with Sheriff's Department potentially, and it'll be what they're able to provide. I think right now especially, we really have no leverage to go to any of them, any Sheriff's Department, and say, we need 12 hours a week, we need them to be, some of the time needs to be in the morning, some of the time needs to be at night, some of the time needs to be weekend. We can't do that, because they're gonna go, this is my staffing, so this is what I can provide you. And I think what we have been given as a document previously from Caledonia Sheriff, I would imagine, they'll probably say, this is about what I can give you right now. And maybe even say that, that's not even close to what I can give you right now.
Which brings us back to the same thing, is exactly what Tim said, being able to call stuff in and work on our signs, putting our signs up in the town if it's becoming.
I think it's, there's a lot of things, and I'll speak to some of that later tonight, but, for me, it's, we all need to be better stewards of our community in general, and that means not just, it's not just neighborhood watch type stuff where we see something happen and we call the cops, but, things like what the library and Rural Edge are doing on June 10th, where they're doing improvements in or around the library properties and the park in town. It's things like the community garden where we're engaging the community in a different way. Those are all non-law enforcement things. And me personally, I mean, I've got experience when it comes to counterinsurgency warfare, which sounds odd to apply to town governance, but part of what we were trained to do and did in Afghanistan and Iraq was to help bolster communities to work together with and partner with each other so that we can better improve and build up our communities. And you don't necessarily need large law enforcement or military type interdiction. What you need is some of the stuff we're doing, right? Spending money on our roads, spending money on our parks, looking at grant funding that can help bolster and improve our community.
So how can we incorporate the civilian constable, which I believe is required by statute, that we have a civilian constable? Is that right or wrong?
So
July 1st, right?
as of July 1, a town can vote. You have to have a vote of your citizenry, and it was just at kind of the encouragement of the league was you can vote it out of your town. So if you go to your citizenry at a general election, you can ask, and the wording would have, somebody else would have to tell you the wording, but do we, the citizens of Groton, vote to remove constable? So you could get rid of the constable. Now, there are towns that just, you're supposed to have one, and what I'm told the reason is that there's some default job functions that they have. I think the most important one is that the statute says if you don't have a delinquent tax collector, then it's the constable. So what I've been told is that legally it's important to have one. Now there are towns, I live in Berlin. Berlin has not had a constable for probably a decade. And their attitude is, we just don't need one. Okay.
But are there creative ways that you can use the position of civilian constable to be a leader in the types of things you're talking about? There are certain things a civilian constable can do. Maybe it's better not to have one at all, but is there value in trying to capitalize on that position if there's somebody who wants to do it.
And the only thing I would be concerned about is that if you had a civilian constable that can't actually do any law enforcement and then got himself into a situation that escalated into something by accident, and then that would be my only.
Right. I mean, there are, I can think of one town where they have a young gentleman who's pretty eager, and if somebody has a noise complaint, they call him and he goes up and says, hey, can you turn the music down, or you're irritating the neighbors. Can they do that? Sure, as long as they're not arresting anybody or, enforcing laws, they're just being a good citizen manager. But I very much fall in your camp, particularly as a lifelong cop, and that is, do I want to, in this day and age,
Right.
not knowing who, now Groton's pretty small, maybe you know everybody in Groton, but, do you really know what that person is, what their condition is, what their state of mind is, and do you want a civilian who doesn't have equipment, who doesn't have communications going up, and even if it is a loud stereo, what if that's the one day that this person's in a really bad mood?
Right. That's what, I mean.
Could you maybe, I just have some concern.
You go out when somebody complains about dogs or whatever it is, and you do the
I've
job.
had 15 and a half years verbal intervention training in Grafton County. I'm retired sergeant there. So I've been involved in quite a few things. I'd like to feel that I can read people well, but I'm with Trevor. If I think the situation is going to go south in any way, I'm going to back out and leave it. I am not going to pursue it at all.
So I'm not volunteering you, but I'm.
Thank you.
I am saying if there was somebody like Dan with his expertise who wanted to do the job, it could be something that could be good for the town.
Oh, you can serve papers as a constable for the town.
You as a town would have to talk about it. Is there anything that says they can't do it? No. But you would want to make sure you had somebody that really clearly understood their limitations.
Right.
It's, because I do have some communities where the civilian constable, sometimes being a little overzealous, the lines get blurred a little bit and they get a little bit heated, and all of a sudden, I'm the constable, you have to do what I say. Well, legally, they probably don't.
Yeah.
So you would need the right person in that
Just
position.
the way
with right
things are
skill set.
today.
Whereas today,
Just-
everyone
I
having a
don't-
phone with a camera, all it would take is one person to get heated and say the wrong thing, and the whole town's in jeopardy. And it does happen.
Well, I'd be more worried about somebody getting shot or hurt or something like that and turning into a huge thing, really, is that.
That's where the experience, you'd have to have someone who's had experience in resolving conflict and handling situations like that.
Which,
I mean,
we're having the
when
same
you're putting
concern
a
with the
pod-
health officer. We can't find anybody to be able to fill that role.
No, but if you could find someone that's been put in a pod with 62 inmates,
Yeah.
and they have to oversee the inmates, make sure everyone gets along, be a mediator,
Yeah.
and have that training.
we'll just put an ad in the paper.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you
Because
want
I'm
to do
sure you're
that.
going to offer a pretty high wage to get somebody in.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I'm not, I get it, which is why we're discussing all
Right,
this and
so
just
we're a
kind of.
little town, we've got some people who, grew up here, who there are in the town. Maybe there is somebody, maybe there isn't.
We have
We
talked
could be
about
lucky.
that, we're just trying to, that's why we're doing and
Right.
having this discussion, and so that we try
There
to.
is a future, and I just don't know, someday, some communities, plural, will crack this code. I mean, the law does allow for communities to share police services. You have to set up an intermunicipal district, which is not that difficult, and then it's regionalized policing. I mean, that's really the time we're in. We've got a lot of small communities, even communities that currently have police departments.
Right.
I've got the town of Linden, they've got 3 cops, that's their whole police department.
Right.
But as a lifelong Barry guy, I used to stand in Barry City and look at Barrytown and Berlin and Montpelier and say, why are we each doing our own thing?
Right.
Why are we paying 4 chiefs? Why don't we get one chief and save a little administrative cost and share our services? So there is some point, right now I think the town of Johnson and maybe Greensboro, some of those folks up in that corner are starting a dialogue about how can we get together, pool our resources and
Right.
say, can we do something together?
Yeah.
Because it does
Discussion,
allow,
yeah.
whether it be you or whether it be in a little geographically challenged out of my central Vermont area, but all your abutters, or even not, even a town or two away. If somebody else had a law enforcement constable, or even you, the law does allow for a community to welcome in another law enforcement constable. There's a legal means to do it so that you could use somebody else's constable, or they could use your constable.
Or we could
If you
have
ever
a
got to that
shared
point.
police thing that we,
Or 5 or 6 towns can say, you know what, we're gonna stand up a 3-person police, or a 2-person police
Right.
department. I mean, the problem there is it's probably pretty heavy lift on startup costs when you're
Right.
talking about
Right.
equipment and cars and that type of thing.
but it's a discussion at some point.
The 6 other towns that I spoke to that are similar in size, that did have a constable with arrest
Well, that's right,
warrants
down
or
in
whatever.
Rochester, Bethel,
Right.
yeah.
All of those are having the same exact problems we're having here, and as I said, staffing problems, they can't hire anybody.
Well, I don't
So,
think that's
I mean, that's
across
just
the
the way it
board,
is.
period,
Yeah.
anyway, so.
Yeah,
But
but
it becomes a bigger problem when law enforcement doesn't come when that's
When
when
you
you're
think it
depending
should
on
be.
life and death situations,
Yeah.
So that, I think there is the validating the state police and what they are doing, because I think
Which
there's.
would, I think that's a great
I think
idea,
there's a-
Deb, if
and I will
touch
pursue that, what
touch
can-
base and see how much they come here and kind of get a, like
Yeah,
a discussion about it.
Because we have, you know, there are people in the town, we don't have Jim anymore, they're not happy, and there needs to be communication between, you know, where's the select board gonna go with this, and why did the
Yep.
decisions get made, and how is that gonna get addressed? And if we decide to go with no constable, it sounds like we need to have a vote. We can't just, you guys can't just decide.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna
Well, it
have to have
sounded
a
like to me
town meeting.
Berlin hasn't had one for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're not worried
what's
about
gonna
it.
happen- I can't tell you that the man's filming me here, so I can't say this, but, you know, I don't really know what the recourse is if you don't have one. I think legally, I need to tell you that, you know, the
You're
law,
supposed to have
basically the law says you need to have a constable.
East Thompson
But-
hasn't had a constable in 70 years.
Oh, there you go.
But I think what you're also saying is, based off of legislation effective July 1st, 2022, the town, in a special town meeting, can vote
Yep.
to not have a constable in our charter.
Just eliminate it. You can
And eliminate
eliminate
the role.
it. It will eliminate the position of constable in your community. And it can be a regular election, whatever, as long as it's a you know, a warned election. There's then some added verbiage that you then have to assign some of those duties. So like the delinquent tax collector, you would, as a board, you would have to say, okay, and now this municipal official, whomever it is also going to serve as the delinquent tax. But yes, you can eliminate constable with a townwide
We'll
vote.
add it to our list of appointments for the year.
Yeah.
So that would be the choice to
Zach, is
do.
there anything in our town charter now that says anything about, any kind of, policing or whatever that we are to have? I don't know.
I don't believe so.
We don't have a town charter. no.
I don't think we have a charter that
Municipal charter?
indicates that,
No, we
no.
don't, that's not the kind of town we are. Haven't- no.
Well, thank you, Trevor.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor.
I don't know how much help I am, but you know, if additional questions come up, either, certainly I can't talk to all the board out of a meeting, but if the one-on-one, or if you want me to come back, you know, this is part of the service you folks get at.
Yeah, and we're just
so.
trying to take information and build,
Yeah.
and we're, Dan and Deb are working
Trying
on
to-
it.
And no, you're not alone. I mean, there are communities all over the state having the same struggle about what do we do, and the, you know, the answer isn't easy because there's not a lot of options.
Right.
A lot of
Yeah.
procedures.
No.
Okay,
So
good.
we have a few
No.
things going forward, signs,
Yeah, we're working
reaching
on
out
it.
to the
So-
state police.
What I wanted to give an update on the signs too, because I got it all right here. I did reach out to.
Thank you, Trevor.
I know
Thank you.
Carrie reached out as well to Nate Covey at the state. And he referred us back to, you know, the state's radios, radar, I'm gonna get this wrong, radar speed feedback signs, and how to set those up on a state highway. So, you know, basically, in essence, we need to redo, and I'm gonna put together a letter and submit it to him, that it just needs to come from me, and I think I have it from when I did it previously. So I started this application process in 2020. which led to what I was able to get at the time, which was changing the speed limits, based off of that was the negotiation I had with the State Transportation Committee. However, what Nate said was resubmit the letter that just requests a new speed study. The speed study would be conducted, and then with the results of that, we fill out a application that would go to the State Transportation Committee again to review and placing the signs. They would then say this is where the signs would be placed. But what I saw in the correspondence that I have from back then when I started this was they're not really wanting to do this type of thing on the state highways. So, what I can say is, and my recollection of going to the Transportation Committee meetings is, they're open to the public like any meeting, and if we get more folks to come to that meeting, I guess, and say, you know, it's not just me coming and saying we want to do this, but people, you know, coming and expressing their concerns. It's probably going to be on Zoom, but expressing their concerns, why we think we need these signs on 302, and knowing that we need to try to get people to slow down. You know,
So when I
That can
talked to
help.
him, he said that he thought the toughest thing to get through would be the sign support assembly. Did you see that?
Where was that?
That has to
at?
be crash worthiness as defined.
Yeah, it's
What is that, the sign post?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it has to
the
be up to
technical
whatever.
requirements. They have to. There's specific technical requirements, and there's like
What about
10 of
the
them.
speed wagons?
it's the
Does that have
same
to-
application process.
Yeah, okay.
The difference is
But
if
the
we've got one.
signs, the signs that we would put them on would be the 30-mile-an-hour
Right.
signs, which are crash.
That's what I tried
Should
saying
be.
to him. They would go on the signs that are already there that say 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. And he kept saying they have to,
They would have to be.
But they're up to spec
Well,
and crash
but
anyway.
They don't get in place where the current speed limit signs are. They would be freestanding signs that require the speed limit to be posted. So it wouldn't be where we've got a 30-mile-an-hour sign, we would take that down and put that up. It's gotta be its own freestanding
It would be 100 miles
signpost,
down the road for
Um,
the 30 mile an hour.
from what I read.
Yeah, it would have to
But
still stay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
he
stipulations.
just said that was the toughest thing to get
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
Well, that should, remember, we could contact Lafayette and they can, they-
Well, what if we put like a Jersey barrier in front of it or something?
That'll work for me.
They crash into a Jersey barrier.
all it is a breakaway post with a base and a thing, and
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
we used to install.
Um,
It's not a big.
But, I mean,
Harold, I'm sure he's got a whole bunch of them down there.
but, you know, I've got all of the information that he sent, state policy on it and the application, so.
So we're gonna keep working on this.
I'll
And-
resubmit the paperwork, to get the speed study in place. And we'll find, when they do the speed study, whenever they have the ability to do it, they'll send that to us. Nate will then make his recommendation to the Transportation Committee,
You
and
think
then,
that's a 6-month?
depends on the cycle. I don't know when their meeting is scheduled, but they meet, I think they're scheduled quarterly meetings. And if they don't have anything for their agenda, they'll cancel them. So, you know, I'll have to look. So it could be it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, you know.
So, if you wanna, I didn't understand from him whether voting to not have a constable could go on the vote that we do in August, that primary vote. Could that be
No.
part of?
No.
It would have to be either a special meeting,
Or just
wait
town
till
meeting.
or we
I
wait till
would
spring,
wait
put it
till-
on a town.
Wait till it comes.
Correct.
Yeah, that might be,
I
and
think-
so that coordinated with what you're saying, Zach, which is if you really want speed limit signs, then here's what we need to do, is show up at this meeting at this
And
time.
I'll try to communicate all of that out as we move the ball forward.
And what about this guy, Owen Ballinger, do you want?
I mean, I
if you
think it would be.
touch base and,
Yeah.
have a discussion and kind of find out what's.
Anytime.
Well, I think it would be great for him to come to, because I think one of the concerns that was expressed, you know, at a couple of meetings ago, about, about, responsiveness of
Yeah.
state police, it would be great to, have them come answer some questions about that.
Do you want to make that into more than just a select board meeting? Would you want to make that something that was, more, everything's open to the public, but I mean, make it a bigger deal so that people in the community who have questions about it, if he's willing, would be able to,
I think we'd start out as a select board to kind of get an idea as a board, what the response, how much, how it works with him, and then we could pursue that further if we need to.
Okay,
if we
okay.
Yeah, I
think-
think that's a,
I mean, because I think the connection, the communication between, we no longer have Jim,
Right.
and now we're not gonna have anybody, and then all the people who have all their different ideas of what they want and what they can have, that's the communication alleyway that, is open, right? The best
Right.
job, at least that's what I'm thinking, is, try and talk to people and let them know what the real situation is, and hear it not from me or Dan, but somebody like Tim or
Yep.
this other guy.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
I
reach
think
out to
that,
him
that,
next.
yeah, I
and
think
see.
that's great.
Great.
Good.
So, thank you, again, thank you to Trevor and Tim for
Yeah.
coming
Thank you,
out
Deb,
after
for
hours.
lining that up.
Yes, it's easier, also easy to work with.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you to Dan and Deborah for getting them here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll keep working on this piece by piece. And
Yeah.
Trying to
I mean, I
do
think
more.
we,
Yeah,
And every time we have a meeting about it, it's on video, so people are being informed about it.
and the only other thing I would say is, look, we're three people with full-time jobs, and, if people have suggestions, recommendations, or otherwise, I
Call Zach.
call me, thanks. Call myself. You would reach me quicker that way. No, I just, I've gotten some questions on what the select board is doing to try to help with law enforcement and the speed interdiction and the drugs and violence, and we're three guys. Like,
Yeah, but
other than-
you are working hard on it.
and we are, but I think what I want to say is I'm open to suggestions. If you've got an idea that you want us to explore, or you want to explore an idea and bring it to the select board to discuss, we want to hear from folks. We want to hear what ideas people have, because I don't have all the answers.
And Ken Page stood there and said, be a good neighbor,
Which is-
which is, maybe it would be helpful if he was able to say that and explain it to a broader audience.
The problem is, Deb, that a lot of people never show up to, a lot of these
Yeah,
things
that's
we
true,
have,
but
so.
that's-
Interestingly enough, I've heard a lot of interesting things said by people in the community about Jim Downing and his police powers and how he was always there for this or that. Everyone has to understand, he was only a level 2. He couldn't do investigations.
Right.
He couldn't do domestic violence intervention. He couldn't do all these things that he's being purported to have done. He couldn't have done them legally. So if he was doing them illegally, he was bringing undue liability onto the town.
But
So-
it's the distance between the myth of what you think you have for protection, what you really have for protection, what you can have. Is people, they know what they want, and they think if they want it, we should be able to figure out how to have it, but we can't.
Well, I
Right,
think that's the perception, I think.
So it's
is-
how you bring the myth to
If we're
reality.
talking
And
about speeding cars, that's one thing, okay?
Right.
And then we're talking about violence and drugs and whatever, that's a whole nother thing, you know what I mean? So it's not,
Right.
Mhm.
it's not like,
And, just working with Jim, and I think, with all due respect to Jim as a level 2 law enforcement officer, he did that job for the town for a very long time and did it pretty well, but just dealing with, pulling cars out of the no parking zone we put in place.
Yeah.
Like, even that,
was a
pushed the
challenge,
limitation.
yeah, that was
It
a,
was a challenge for sure, but it pushed the limitations of what he was able to do. And he
Yeah.
still had to have the state police come out to help interdict with that. And, and again, the state police at this point, I know Tim said it, I know Trevor said it, it's all over the radio with all of the, all of the mass shootings and otherwise that are going on. What do we do when we have, a state, and we're not alone, that is having huge staffing issues with regards to law enforcement officers? And frankly,
He also said they'd come.
they do, they,
He
and,
said they would come.
yep,
we gotta move.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, All right, well, again, thanks. We'll continue to have this on the agenda and continue to discuss it.
Plugging away.
Okay, that's it, yep. All right, next, the complaint that was filed against select board members. I want to start by saying that I have asked Aaron to discuss what actions can be taken against select board members in which a complaint was filed. And he's reached out to VLCT, right? And
I do
you're
have a
waiting for
conversation
response.
going with Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. I also reached out to Lise to get her perspective on things, so I would anticipate at the next board meeting that we should certainly have a resolution to that.
Okay, so, I mean, I want to make kind of a statement about the complaint, and I've thought about this a lot, but, you know, every day I drive into this town when I get off of work, I think everybody drives by the same sign that I drive by. It says, "Welcome to Groton," and it says, "Where a small town is like a large family." And honestly, over the last 6 months, this town has not felt like a large family to me. And I think I'm not alone in that feeling. You know, it really has brought into question for me, you know, what is being understood about what the political process in our country, in our state, in our town is. And there's a term that comes to mind for me that I've heard of and used multiple times, which is civil discourse. And the term civil discourse is a discourse or conversation to reach mutual understanding for the better good of the community, and not to destroy the community. And I'll be honest, I feel like over the last 6 months, that's what has been seen as the intent, or perceived as, from my perspective, as the intent of what's been happening over the last 6 months. The level of respect and dignity that's been given to these offices, to this government of the town, have been absolutely upsetting to me. It saddens me and disappoints me that this is the way people in our community want to treat each other. And I think, you know, it's good enough to sit on the other side of this table and not have any idea who I am or anything about me. But when my credibility and integrity are questioned on a regular basis, it is beyond disrespectful. It demeans me, it makes me feel like I've been demeaned, it makes me feel like I've been disrespected, and it makes me feel like that I'm not cared about in this town. And I know everybody can think about it. I'm not from here. I did not grow up in Groton. I was not born in Groton. But I give a whole hell of a lot of care about this town. You know, I want this town to be a great town. I think we've got a lot of really great stuff going on. But like I've said, I feel like the civil discourse in this town has been ruined as of late. And it's not everybody. You know, I see people like, you know, people that I would never think would work together. People like Mike Namias and Gary Lamberton working on the VORC grant stuff. Deb and Dan, never thought that I would see the two of you working together to figure out how we can figure things out in this town for law enforcement. But those things are being done for the better good of this town. And I feel like that's the stuff that keeps me coming back to this meeting and not quit. Because honestly, I've felt over the last 3 months, I felt like I needed to quit this job and walk away from it. Because I've been disrespected, I've been demeaned, and I've been personally attacked. And this complaint has brought that to a head for me. It's not right that I come here out of my own time and spend a lot more than what the stipend, annual stipend for this position is to work on things for this town and don't get any respect for it. And no thanks for it. And it's just not right. So that's what I have to say about that.
And that's, yeah, I would agree with you on that and so on and so forth, but this all comes down to one individual, person that seems to be attacking the town and us as a board, so.
I've got something I'd like to say. I think over the course of the last 2.5 years, no one has had more civil discourse than me and you. And some of it has been very heated civil discourse. But we both want the same thing. We want to better the town. And I know that when I come to you with something, I always try to have a solution. I just don't come and bitch. I try to have a solution or have an idea for a solution, and you do the same thing. I've never felt disrespected, no matter how heated it got. I've not felt disrespected. I understood your position, and I hope that you understood mine. The other thing I'm going to say is, as a select board, come July 1st, there is a new law going into effect. You are elected officials. You are protected from harassment, and there are severe penalties if you are harassed. And I agree with you 100% on the fact that I think the select board has been disrespected. Your integrity has been called into question many times. I've heard so many times, oh, it's hidden, it's hidden. We have the most open situation going as far as for the town. Anyone can come and look at anything, and it's right there in the open. I heard one thing that if we passed the budget, it was going to go up $20,000 a month. Now, I don't know who in their mind was thinking that or saying that to other people around, but that was a flat-out lie. And it's bothered me the last 6 months as it's bothered you. So,
Thank you,
You
Jan.
know, it happens. When you put yourself in a position, sitting behind the desk, it happens. I was warned before I became a select board member that you're gonna feel the way you feel right now. We are like a big family. We don't all get along, because no big family gets along. We're human beings, we all have our feelings, and, you know, everybody deserves to be heard. Gotta grapple with it.
I agree.
Keep going.
Yeah, I think that
One
response.
foot in front of the other, keep going. I mean, I was more scared, I had more stomach aches. When I was on there, on the side of that table, it was terrifying to me. Being demeaned and being disrespected, try being a little tiny old lady and being yelled at by great big people who are really mad at
working
you.
with her.
Yeah, we have a great bunch of people, our whole town
Just keep it-
together,
yeah.
you know, everybody works hard here and gives their all to this town and really appreciates this town, and that's why we're here, is because we care for this town, and otherwise we would just all quit and give up and go home and say, okay, somebody else can deal with it.
So I'd like to read something. This is by a man named Howard Zinn. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there were so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at the least, the possibility of sending the spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act, in however a small way, we don't have to wait for some long utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents, and to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is in itself a marvelous victory. So you guys are doing it. Everybody here who cares is doing it. So it's good.
So,
Lisa, you have a comment?
I do. You
say you feel disrespected, demeaned, belittled, how do you think I felt that night? That I got jumped down my throat and hollered at and called things and whatever. How do you think I feel with the amount of time that I've put into the town? So you have to understand that I was a visitor at a meeting which I am welcome to come to at any time. It's an open meeting. I can ask questions. I did not disrespect you at all, either of you that night. I kept my calm, and however, I did not get the same respect in return. And that's all I'm going to say.
It was just a
I
heated
would-
discussion.
I would say that, you know, I'm gonna start by saying, I feel like we confronted you, Lise, on 6 months of harassment, personal attacks of this board, of other elected officials, complete and blatant disrespect of this entire process, which is fine, but the problem I have, Lise, is you come to these meetings and you're not helping us to build up. What it feels like to me is you're here to tear down.
Yeah.
And when you come here and not ask, you're asking clarifying questions that you've asked 3 times over. You know, when you bring handouts that we allow you to hand out at meetings and you completely and blatantly not give them to elected officials who asked for them. And then on top of that, you take the information about the budget and you put it on social media, in the newspaper, all over the place, on signs all over town. That information was taking facts from the budget and twisting it to misinform the public about what was really going on. And I know that because when people came to the meeting after the budget didn't pass the first time, and I heard out of one person's mouth that this select board was trying to hide stuff on the town, and that the town can't afford wage increases that were requested.
Any of the information that I put out there for public knowledge, what came from the office specifically, everything that I had obtained for information and numbers came strictly from the office. I never fabricated any numbers.
But I'm not saying you fabricated any numbers, Lise. What I'm saying is you took that information and you turned it for your own personal agenda.
I had no personal agenda, as I told you before.
But you say that, but you've been attacking Lisa and Carrie from day one here about their wages.
I never addressed them personally.
No, you don't say their names, but you say they get paid this much. It doesn't even matter. We're the board, and we're here to run this town.
Right.
Okay? And that's what we're gonna do. And we need to spend time working on things that are good for this town and move forward with our projects. And if we get a little loud and a little heated at times, I'm sorry about that if we hurt your feelings. But enough is enough, is what it came down to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about it, and Aaron can get information from VLCT and respond to everyone accordingly from there. Community club. So, so I gotta start with some questions, Peter. Well, I got an invoice for flowers. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Okay.
That's not you, Peter.
Okay, we got Mary. She's on this one.
Yeah.
So what sequence do you want to go with?
Let's
Talk about the agenda.
stick to let's talk about the flower barrels.
Go ahead, talk flowers with Mary.
Last year, we didn't have the money, so the town got the flower, paid for flowers within I don't think there's what, 3 or 4.
It's one by the,
Got it here. 11 plants for water maintenance.
Well, 11.
Memorial Day to Labor Day.
11 barrels. And so the town did, and they said they'd bring it back up again this year, whether they were going to do it again or not. So I don't know why you've got an invoice, nobody's approved it, the town hasn't approved it.
It's just
We
a
have.
quote, like.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is it just, well,
Yeah.
it says invoice.
We don't have any money. And I don't know if you guys want to do it, as you said, you're going to have somebody doing the park and that down there, clean up that area, they might want to do it. I mean, people may want to choose different flowers within those flower boxes. When we first did this, the flower boxes were throughout the town, and individual people would buy the flowers and maintain them for the summer. And then some of them passed away, some, you know.
Sounds like we need a flower committee.
So we took it over, and then it kept getting higher and higher in price. And we said, we can't afford it, because the community club is in charge of raising money for education. That's what we do, is that we give $200 a year in scholarships to the students, all Groton resident students that graduate from the NU, that are continuing their education. May buy 1 book, 2 books, but it might help that entry fee. This year, we did a second round of doing the cookout up to Bill's to raise enough money so that we could give each student $400, which then just leaves us enough to start up our new, this year will be our full year back in doing the fall foliage.
Okay.
This is our first year.
So, I mean,
it would be your decision whether the town, I don't know if you put it in the budget or not even.
it's not in the budget. So, I mean, I think, you know, Mary, it's a great thing to have the flowers around town. It you know, it does help with the town being beautified, but
it's 800.
it's, you know, we just going through the budget and having all the issues we've had with the budget, it's kind of hard for us to say yes to this. But, you know, I think, Mary, if you want to explore, I mean, having folks, you know, try to take on and volunteer to maintain a pot, a barrel, you know, I think that's a great idea to help, you know, cover some of these costs anyway. And, you know,
How much did she have in her bill?
800.
I have a
$815.
question. Do you get those flowers at cost? There's no local greenhouse around here that won't give you at them at cost
Well, the
because
woman
it's
that
a.
pretty
comes
cheap.
gets them.
She gets
at
them
cost.
She does.
Well, I know there's a
11
lady that runs and she waters the one next to the post office, and I've taken that over because I live next to the post office
Oh.
once she plants it. But I noticed it didn't get planted this year, so that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is I saw it on the agenda. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why.
That's what's going on, is who's gonna pay for them, to have her come and plant all the flowers and do that
So,
part of it.
yeah, what she's,
I would think it'd be a line item in the budget, even just for a beautification committee or something. I
well,
mean, there's.
previously,
you should be
I
able
mean,
to do
again,
something.
as Mary
It wasn't.
indicated, it was part of the community club's,
Yeah,
funding
I
and
don't
duties.
know about that. I don't-
Yeah, so
Which
community
you
club
could-
is a
you-
private
Whoa, whoa,
nonprofit.
whoa, whoa.
You could get involved in this with Mary and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I think, you know, it's right now especially at $35 a piece for 11 barrels, you know, that's the cost that it's looking like, plus 400 for the watering.
So somebody gets paid to water?
That's, yeah, half hour or an hour, 2 times a week for 14 weeks. So it's, you know, it's, again, I mean, with the budget and being where we were, I kind of, it's one of those things that I just think,
There is town property maintenance money.
How much?
Well, there's 15,000 and we've spent
Close
5,000.
Don't tell people that.
So we got plenty of
We
money.
got money.
We got money.
It's for that grant for the ball fields.
How
Right.
much
No.
is that, 74? The grant for the ball fields, what was that?
Well, we'll get 5,000 after, well, pretty much after 10,000.
After 10,000.
So,
I don't know,
so you
I,
could find money and not instantly other funding throughout the town, but
I'd
And
be
I
willing,
think maybe
I'd be willing to
more.
help plant and stuff, but I'm not gonna buy stuff that I can't afford.
no.
No, I can't. I'm gonna agree with this budget.
And I think last year it was like 1,300, so
Yeah.
it's definitely less.
Yeah. Well, we had to buy barrels last year though, too.
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
we?
she had to
That's why
replace
we
a
had,
few.
we had to
The
replace
one at
like,
the post office is just about destroyed, so
Yeah.
it's gonna be replaced all.
So that would then be a line item that would go in your budget under these particular programs, which would be
people,
Just right here, town property.
town property.
Right, this
You
year
can
you
go
could just
under
put
town
it here.
property, or you can go under
Just get some
rec
flowers and put them in the bucket.
committee, where the kids could get involved.
Individuals with the flowers, put them in the
Or the
bucket.
garden people,
Yeah.
they're on the town gardens, why wouldn't they take on the town flowers?
I can talk to them.
I'm trying to think of alternatives.
Yeah, the group that is very, you know, the community garden folks are really aiming at trying to produce, you know, vegetables that will, you know,
I
be
mean,
able to support.
I think the buckets
folks,
need to be, I mean, if you spend $1,000 or close to $1,000, needs to be a different job. I don't think it's worth it.
But if you can have, if you've got the money, you
There's
know.
somebody coming every week, Memorial Day
It's
to
not
Labor
worth it.
Day.
It hasn't been, the 2 buckets by the
I don't
town
know, I
office
think the
look
only
nice, but
thing
the
is
other
just
one-
like, what they
Ours are
charge
lost.
for
They don't
them.
even know.
They get
You don't think
flowers.
so? I think everybody was going to put it.
Yeah.
I'll do want the post office because I want it to look nice and I have to live next to it.
See,
And if you-
everybody feels that
And
same
so
way.
there, so, and if you want to fund any money for any of the other buckets, I will help plant them and I will help water them. But I'm not gonna take on the entire town.
Okay, so she said she's gonna do the entire town. Okay, come on.
She's gonna
Well,
do
you make sure
10,
that's on
she's
tape.
gonna do 10 planters and I'll do the other one.
How many do we have in town?
It's
I don't want
what
this
we've got
to be a
listed is
big
11,
thing.
but, I mean, I guess I'll leave it to the rest of the board as to
What do you
whether we
think,
fund it or not.
I'm okay with good, if there's money in the budget for town beautification.
And I would say, I guess, come budget time, we
I mean, I
consider
think, yeah,
putting $1,000 in the budget
for that.
to cover this
I
on a
think
regular
it
basis.
improves
You
the,
think that's a good idea, Carrie?
I think it would be nice for the town to have some flowers.
How about Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay.
how about Harold?
How about Dorothy?
Harold,
I don't have any flowers at the town garage.
you got.
I'll bring you some.
We'll bring you a bucket.
Oh, no, now you're gonna have to go and build a planter.
All in favor?
Park the dump trucks out
Yeah,
there.
We don't even need that, so
Yeah,
if
it's
everybody's good with it,
Okay.
we'll just do a PO and I'll approve the PO. That's-
Peter?
Okay, Peter, I guess, community
Guys,
community club part 2.
I thought I was in the open session at the end, so this is good stuff for you. What
Okay,
we're doing is we're moving forward on the bathroom, the kitchen. And this shows you what we did when we did the bathrooms. We laid it out so that you could put the kitchen on with no structural changes. So it blends on perfectly.
Okay.
So that's the design we're going to be using, and be subject to modification, we'll move windows and all that good stuff. So the key is that the building is set, there's no structural change that take place. When we did the bathrooms, we didn't have an adequate water supply at all the wells, so we had to drill a well to get adequate size of plants to the state standards, and we ended up with like 65 gallons a minute to get in. And for the record, that was cost the town $10,000. And you know who paid that $10,000?
Fred Brain.
Fred and Sigma Brennan.
okay.
That was donated by them, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, so the key is that we have water also for the kitchen now because when we did the bathroom with their donation.
Right.
All right. Second thing is we have a preliminary layout of the kitchen. What we're going to do is substantial amount of work is going to have to take place on this. We're going to post this up at the Upper Valley Grill. And Robin and Bill will constantly be open to ideas, suggestions, criticisms, whatever you want. And we'll have enough open sessions. We may even have open sessions down here at the building to get people's input. So when we get it done, the term we use is it's strategic. It's done once and done right. Because we can't afford to do it twice. We have one chance at this.
Who's the engineer that you're using? to
I'm
work-
sorry?
What engineering company are you using for the schematics?
It's not an
the way-
engineer, it's an architect.
So-
It needs to be done in respect.
So I would say it actually needs to be looked at by a general contractor like Nate, who we're working on with the infrastructure project. The problem is an architect will give you a great design, Peter, but they're not gonna tell you what the regulatory requirements are. So for a kitchen like this, it's kind of a commercial kitchen, and we're gonna have to have things like sprinkling that meets state
We have to let them
specifications
know.
for fire
You mind
suppression.
being corrected?
Go ahead.
I actually have an architect doing 3 buildings for me right now.
Okay.
And if you hire the right architect, and we have, this is Blackstone out of Montpelier. The architect knows the code. And they go through and get the approval from the state for you as part of the process.
Okay.
This is part of the deal. You don't hire an architect who doesn't know code.
Is this something that the town is gonna undertake doing?
Well, that's,
So
Peter's trying to.
So this is just this is not a debate, this is just that kind of feedback right now. So the second section is that what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on having solar for the facility. So we're gonna work on getting solar panels up on the back, ripple away in up there. So we'll take this building and hopefully the fire department and remove the dependency for Green Mountain Power. And we'll do some work here, like these bulbs here are substantially out of mold, right? You need
So the solar for the two buildings, your Green Mountain Power should go in your budget to zero, which will help pay for Mary's Flowers next year, as an example.
You and I had talked about the sprinkler systems, and the suppression systems.
Yeah, we're gonna let the architect work with the state to
Well,
figure that
the
out.
whole building has to be sprinkled because that'll be a commercial kitchen. You and I talked about that.
Actually, what they'll come back and tell us perhaps is there's firewall differentiation, et cetera, type solutions that eliminate from you having to do a whole building. So that'll be part of the design and interaction we'll have with them, and I'm going to get you involved in that. So stay tuned.
Oh, I'm.
So certainly, it's a good question. Okay.
Oh, no. I'll just stay tuned.
We need, in order to get state approval, we have to have that done.
Design without
Yeah, in
it
order to
being
get a
done through the
town
town
approval,
in
yeah.
some kind of.
Well, I think
official
Peter's starting to work
So,
on
well,
this, and
so, Peter,
You know, I mean, you
I'll
can't run
say,
something, you can't put something on the bulletin board it bills. And
so, Peter, we talked about this a few months ago,
Yep,
and it doesn't seem like we've gotten further than where we were previously.
actually, we've gone quite a long ways.
What we talked about was, having a proposal that can come to the select board, because my concern is, what is this gonna cost us? Where is this funding gonna come
well, we
from?
haven't even got to any of that. It sounded like he's in
Well,
the
yeah,
works of
yeah,
trying
let
to.
me take you through the sequence. If you're doing the business, I know you're an Army background. If you're in the business background, you have a certain sequence you have to follow.
Yes.
So the sequence is, you have to get a design done. It has to meet all the code requirements for all the entities that have some say in that end construction. And then what you do is you take it out and you find out what the cost is. And then you work through the funding process by looking at various sources of grants and monies that are spread through the federal and state organizations. And then we come back and say, okay, here's a design that's approved, it's all specs, and we have community input. Here's the design that's approved by the state, it's good to go to bid. And by the way, here's where we're going to get money, like we did for the bathrooms. We didn't raise taxes to do those bathrooms, we got grants. Pretty cool.
Yep.
So it's a logical process, and it's an extended a little bit of overhead, but it's going to be done by volunteers.
So I think, especially because it's on the municipal building, we need to make sure that everything is covered. We've got everything understood, what's gonna happen, making sure that if we're gonna move forward with a proposal like this, it's gotta have all of the specifics, before we can even approve it to move it forward. I'll also say, we've got $500,000 now, including a lot of infrastructure funding and grant funding to redo the entire wastewater and stormwater drainage for this whole piece of property. I would like us to get that completed and in place before we're able to think about, where we're gonna go with building this stuff. Because honestly, we did several site visits with USDA. We did them with Nate Sicard from Ruggles Engineering. When we looked out there, we had to adjust the plan because of where ledge is behind this building, how it's set up back there, where the water runs off back there, and how it needs to be, constructed to make sure that we're, really solidifying what's going on with the water table around this building. Because, where's it at? The grate right there, there's still water running underneath the building that we need to figure out what's going on. So, I'm not gonna say that I'm fully against, this concept, this idea. I definitely think, it's something that I think would be great to have as an addition here, but we need to make sure that it's done at the right way, all the way around, that we completely understand what are the, fire safety suppression needs, making sure that the electrical and everything is done correctly to code. Because as a municipal building, we have to make sure that we're following all of that, because we can't just have, can I do the electrical for a kitchen or
Obviously,
bathroom?
if we're building
Yeah,
the
but-
whole thing, we're not gonna just.
Let me say it again. This is being done by an architect extremely professional, Blackwood Design. When that work is done, it meets all the code better than any detail you will ever expect to need. We're not debating the need to have it done right. And Black River Design is an extremely credible organization. Do some homework on that, and you'll come back and be rest assured that we'll have a good project.
Peter, I'm not saying that, I think,
There's gonna be no permit given until the rest of the drainage and construction is done. As a zoning administrator, I cannot approve any permit, that any construction done on that end until the drainage part of that is done.
okay.
This is,
People in town.
so let me just talk timeline, because in the political arena, which I understand extremely well, the easy answer is to delay it or not make a decision, because it takes you off the hook a little bit, and it gives you time to do whatever you want to do. This takes a long time to go through and get these designs done, and it's going to take us a lot of work through volunteers. You talk about you being volunteers, we're all volunteers too, and we're going to be soliciting a lot of input. We're doing a lot of work with Black River, the solar people, and to get that packaged up, it's not gonna happen in a few days.
You guys have the
But
town people want it.
I'm talking to the board right now.
So much.
So, you know, I understand, so I'll say, you know, I get all of that, Peter, I will say that. I completely understand timelines. I mean, when we met with the USDA guy to talk about the infrastructure project, for us to be able to get the funding that we're gonna get, we have to be on a very strict timeline, which means we need to have that project out to bid in the fall. We have to have ground broken in the spring next year, and hopefully get the project done, you know, by the end of the season. And it's probably not even gonna be, it's gonna be next season and the following season, based off the amount of work that has to be done. So I get it, and again, I wanna say, I'm not against us trying to look at this and explore this, but we gotta make sure that we've got all of those details together before we even think about trying to get a permit and build things.
Right.
You know, I wanna make sure that we've got it 100% in line with making sure.
Which is fine, but I think that we need to still keep things in mind for moving forward with the town, and this kitchen thing's always been a
We got
problem.
a $500,000 project going on out there, Tristan. You
I'm
wanna
not
take a
worried
$250,000 project and put it on top of it and balance them both at the
Did
same
I
time?
say we were gonna do that?
You
He's
said-
talking about looking into a project and whatever.
Yeah, and
No, that's
nobody
fine.
said he
We can worry
couldn't,
about the
right?
parking lot.
Nobody said he can't. Did anybody here say he couldn't do it?
No, and
Not at all. Not at all.
We
I
talked
think-
about this in the fall, I think it was fall, maybe late fall, early winter. You know, Peter, we said, we wanna get a formal proposal back from the community club on what this building is gonna look like, not just an architectural design, but all of the information that goes along with what we want this to look like. Again, you know, will it be a benefit to the community to have this on this building? But yeah, I think there is some potential community benefit. The problem is, we have to balance that against the financial feasibility of having that here. And I know you're gonna find grants and try to find funding, but beyond that, we have to upkeep it. Because it's a commercial kitchen, there's gonna be specific commercial kitchen codes we have to meet. The hooding that's gotta go in there is gonna have to be maintained on an annual basis. So there is an impact on the taxpayer that we have to keep in mind as well. And you know, I think, you know, to Aaron's point, you know, we were awarded, you know, $200,000, and, you know, we've got ARPA funding available. And we've got a $500,000 project that we're working on right now to improve the foundation work of the building, let alone add-ons to the building, which, you know, I'll agree with Dan, needs to be done first before we even think about putting anything on the back of the building, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and again, and I don't want to say, wait, I think, you know, Peter, it is perfectly good for you to do what you're saying. Let's get community input. Let's start getting the word out there about this as a proposal. Let's start talking about what the town wants. And so when it's ready and you've got it all into a package to bring back to the select board, we can open it up for community input and say, is this what we want to do? Does the community agree that this is what we want for this building, and be able to move forward?
That's all I've been asking for. Is the support to go forward.
So you're getting 100% of what you're asking for then, Peter.
Yeah.
The board is
And that
supporting you
includes-
100% if that's what you're looking for,
And that
right?
includes the solar in the back, up in the.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think things like, so I mean, with the plan that we've got laid out, solar would be great, but we gotta move a hell of a lot of material out back before we
Actually, you
get that
don't,
ready.
you would like to work with your engineer to come back to us.
Yes,
No,
that's an
so
excellent, oh, go ahead.
What I would say is we're beyond that point with our project at this point, with the infrastructure, to be honest. We have had this design looked at by multiple people, including the USDA, who's funding the infrastructure project. And honestly, I think his words were that this is an amazing project for the town to be working on to fix the infrastructure and to get this right. So, you know, yes, do I want to explore, you know, opportunities to get us to net zero? Absolutely, I think it's a great idea, but I also don't want us to let that get in the way of this $500,000 project that we've gotten funded, pretty much all, from grants and infrastructure funds.
So you're supporting us go ahead and working with the engineer to get the design for the solar as well?
I mean, I would suggest that that's fine if you want to talk to somebody about it, but
No, we don't
what I would
talk,
say
we
is,
don't design it.
well, but the problem is you can design it the way it looks right now. In a year, it's not going to look like that.
No, it's not going to be designed, we work with your engineer to blend it in with the project.
The town has to pay, will pay for Ruggles
It's
every
very easy to do.
minute.
Well, that's we need to make sure that we've, again, what I want to make sure is we're getting through the correct processes with the grant-funded project that we've got laid out now to get that done. So, you know, for me, I can't take anything. I know, Tristan, you're going to work with Peter on this, which is fine, but I think every time we call Ruggles to come down and talk to him about it, he charges us by the hour. And that's money that will end up coming out of the town, you know, our budget for that project. That, you know, at this point, we need to, you know, we need to try to save every penny we can for that project because, you know, with prices of material and everything going up and some of the specifications that we have to meet for that grant.
So can we work with Ruggles or not and come up with a?
I don't know what,
We think solar is a critical part of this community. The term we use is economic vitality or revitalization for the community.
How much money would we spend on this, Peter?
I'll find that out.
Can we find out how much Ruggles would,
I want to go
how
through.
much we'd spend on
we
this?
could probably find what his hourly rate is, but I mean, again, I would,
No, I'll get a proposal. I'll
Okay.
try to get one. I just need to get through the bureaucratic aspects, which I'm trying to
Well,
do
but,
right
you
now.
know,
If all you're doing is planning, that's all we're talking about. I mean, I've said it before, if somebody wants to do the legwork and put the plan, give
Which
us.
is what the start
in
is all
front of us,
about,
yeah.
is a plan.
Yeah.
Whether we finish the plan or it's not feasible and whatever, but we gotta, I
You're
mean,
getting the best deal in
I'd rather
town.
have
Don't stop
somebody
anything right now.
come in
Have you
here
talked
with
to
like
Howard
a
about
plan
the
to
solar?
move forward
I
and
don't need
ideas
to.
versus
I know,
like a fight against everything.
this is
we do.
this,
So you know
I'll
the
say it
permitting
feels like
process.
deja vu because this is the
It
exact
took me a year to get
conversation I
permits.
had.
Put
I
my
know,
solar
like,
panels in.
but
I'll
I
take you
told
through
Peter,
all the
like,
panels I'm not.
because I've seen all that already, is an actual proposal. Like,
I am
this
close
is
to an expert
this is
on
what
that.
we intend to do. We're going to build this kitchen. Here are the designs as an amendment or as an addendum, but this is what we want to put in. We want to put a commercial kitchen in that includes these things, and this is what it needs to be, because we need. It's still kind of nebulous in my brain on what we're doing.
And if you're gonna do a kitchen and we use this for fall foliage day once a year, as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly, it works well for that. But if you're gonna build a kitchen and we're gonna do multiple events and whatever, that's a whole different
Does the
thing, I
town have
guess.
an appetite for that?
And
I don't
mean,
know.
I don't think you can.
Septic design was designed for the exact use. We had to tell Nate
That's right.
how this town is using this building.
Yeah.
And he knew of the
A
events that
commercial.
happened, and
Yeah.
so he put that into the design.
So there's more
plan of the
obviously
septic.
to it than.
The
It's-
septic
it's-
is done.
Well, it's, you know, again, I'm not against the idea, the concept is sound, it makes sense, but there are a lot of pieces and a lot of details that need to be kind of
No
ironed
one
out
knows that
before.
better than me.
Yeah,
All I
so,
want is support to go forward. If you don't, we'll stop, but we don't want to spend time if you don't support.
I mean, again,
You can spend time, don't spend money. Spend all your time you want, Peter, don't spend a penny of the town's money though.
That's fair, but
That's fair.
okay, so at this point, A proposal for how much we would, you said you'd get a proposal.
We're gonna have to get, package up some numbers. I needed to know what kind of resistance we were gonna get.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't wanna go through this process and find out that Nate just doesn't,
Well, I mean,
you don't, Zach, if you're just gonna fight it, then tell me up front.
No, Peter, I'm not trying to fight it, I'm trying to be realistic, is the big
Logical.
thing, is.
We're gonna do all the homework for you.
And I would suggest, I'd be happy to pay for an hour at a time for you to call Nate Sicard and talk to him, because he has had this surveyed, he's got all of the drawings, he's got everything for the project that we're already working on,
That's a big help.
and you ask him, is it feasible to put a kitchen in with, in addition to the
And
project we're
solar,
working on?
and solar.
Dorothy?
I think if you're gonna have anybody call Nate, I think that you need a motion that's gonna say, we're gonna spend money for 1 hour. 1 hour only. We're not designing this kitchen using Nate after all we've just gone through with the budget. I think we need to put a time limit on what we're paying for.
Okay.
And I think you need to have the town express whether they actually have any interest in investing in a commercial grade kitchen on this building. That needs to be put to a vote as an article.
I suggest
One
that
other
when we
thing.
get to a point where we have
I don't
the
think we need
details
to
and
wait that
specifics.
long.
No, I know.
Where this
yeah.
kitchen's going is where our handicap parking is supposed to be.
I mean, which is critical to talk to Nate over.
Yep.
So apparently, there's a lot more to this.
Why don't I do this? Okay, why don't I do this? I will reach out to Nate Sicard.
I need to be part of that discussion.
Okay, I will set up a meeting with Nate and you and I, and we'll go talk specifically about what you've got and the feasibility of putting that on the back of the building.
Including solar.
Perfect. We can include solar, Peter, but what I'd tell you is let's make those two separate things.
No, we gotta do it all, because you don't want to engineer this twice.
Well, we're gonna end up engineering it 3 times.
I think there's places that will come in and put in solar panels.
I think what you should do is I think you should just talk to him and get his opinion on incorporating the solar or not incorporating the
Correct,
solar.
yeah.
Because it's a lot cheaper if you do all your infrastructure and do all your planning at once.
That's right.
Than if you go and you have your design right now and you do that, and then you go back later and you try to redo or reconfigure something.
Yeah.
I would get his professional opinion, and I would say, okay, we want to do this, we're thinking about doing that, what is your recommendation, and get his professional opinion on it, and see what he thinks about whether you should piggyback on it now, or, just see what the costs are, and see, it might be more cost effective to do
I
it.
think,
To do your planning, but don't implement it, but do the planning all at once, so you can do it later.
The only reason I say do it separately, because we've gone with
I
the
think
infrastructure project.
we gotta not turn this into a big.
What I'll say is with the infrastructure project,
Either table this or something, 'cause
I've done 2 active units, I built 3 commercial buildings, and I built like 5 dollars, so I understand. Been there, done that.
So what do we,
I think we need a sewer system.
so I'll set up a meeting, Peter, probably next week, if Nate's available.
Not Wednesday.
Okay, not Wednesday.
Wednesday morning.
We got a whole bunch of meetings on. So,
And we can discuss the feasibility with Nate of
I think that's
this
excellent
with other things, and especially because he's involved in the project that we're working on already, it makes a lot of sense.
now, this is the same process we went through when you do the bathrooms. It's the same problem. It's not new, and it's a pain for you all just to get acclimated to it. I understand that.
Well, no, it's not that, Peter. We just want to make sure that if we're going to do this, that like
It's
I
done
said,
right the first time.
it's done right the first time. We're meeting codes specifically, and that we're making sure that we fully understand the impacts on the town and on the taxpayer.
Exactly. Just like we did with the bathrooms.
Yep.
We had to do all the same stuff. Great.
thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. Okay,
Finally.
and now we get on to the rest. Department updates, NEK CUD broadband infrastructure proposal. I got an email today, actually just got it before the meeting. Gavin's gonna look at the agreement early next week. He's got a litigation case that he's got in court Friday, so he'll look at it Monday, Tuesday, and get back to us with that. because we voted on it already, as soon as it's good to go, I'm just gonna sign it. and
See the-
you can-
That's the updated agreement that Mike sent at the beginning of the week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I forwarded to
Gavin.
Gavin and said, Gavin, use this one, not the other.
Not the
one."
other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and my agenda's wrong. Infrastructure project, I think we're still waiting on,
All right, I heard from Sean, and he said he was ready to send a memo to us, and he was hoping to get it for tonight, but he didn't get it
okay,
to us about what to be what's the next step for the right of way
Yeah.
for
Okay.
Mount Street,
gotcha.
so,
So we're waiting on a memo from
Yeah.
Sean, okay.
yeah.
All right, cool. Highway,
I'll be quick,
appreciate it.
once I stop laughing. So it's getting that time of year again where we usually put out bids for roadside mowing. You know, looking at what it cost last year and thinking about what it might cost this year. I've been trying to come up with options
Yeah, the price of diesel.
without,
Excellent weed whackers, and that is wonderful.
you got one. You know, do we do one pass on every road to try to keep it within our budget? Do we have them come in and do $6,500 worth of, and wherever he ends? I am looking for the board's suggestions on
I have a
this.
question, Harold.
Yes.
Is it worth one pass? Is it worth doing what we do every year? We've always done what we do every year. Is it worth it?
I think so.
Okay?
To do what?
To do two passes.
Two passes?
Yeah, keeps everything
Keeps
pushed
the
way back.
brush back.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can help that situation by doing something that could lower that whole thing?
I mean, there's some roads that we have that we could cut.
See, now we're going somewhere here.
The last 2 years we've done, well, last 3 years since we got the excavator, we've done a lot of ditching.
Okay,
So there's not a lot of growth in the new ditches.
okay.
How many miles do you do?
25 miles.
25 miles of mowing.
So let's all that, just discussion real quick, okay? So let's say you only did half of it this year and whatever, but you did the other half next year. We like rotated and tried to save ourselves some money, and you know what I mean? Like they mow certain parts of the interstate one year and skip. Can we do something like that to save some money?
Are we allowed to do-
My-
are we allowed to do that because of that?
Say no.
We don't have to.
We don't have to do
I
that.
don't know.
Harold, my suggestion would be do one pass over everything. That's, if it was just me that you were asking, I'd say if your budget's limited, go over every road once, and Minard Hill and Powder Spring, you're 1 and 2 twice, if the money's there for it.
I'd say that sounds like a fair.
Yeah, that sounds
I
good.
mean, it's something better than nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just,
Is
you
there
know,
more
trying to figure it out.
Is there more ditching you need to do where you gotta mow?
There's only so much.
Just dig the whole town up, doing it.
We got a chipper and saws and all that stuff, right? So we could just start whaling out sections.
Volunteers too.
You got some size.
No.
But, so I just, you know, I'm just looking for
Put a
suggestions.
brush up in the back of my tractor.
Yeah,
I'd say that's probably the best answer for that.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good.
So I will put that out to bid, open bids for your next meeting.
Perfect.
Hopefully we'll get more than one like we did last year. Did we get 2 last year?
If we get one, we get.
That's better than me. That's right.
And there are some other people are starting to use those brontosaurus things and really hammering things hard too. So at some point, maybe we would even talk about certain sections doing that and saving some money and trying to get things.
I mean, once you do it, you gotta maintain it.
Right.
I mean, if you don't maintain it within a few years, the trees start growing again, 10 years, it's right back. So
Then you're trouble mowing, weeding, snowplow.
it's, it's just something I'm thinking about, wanted to bring it to the board.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Harold.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, that's it.
Okay. Treasurer.
Printed the budgets, and they're handed out to all the departments.
Thank you.
Should be at 42%.
All right. And the budget passed?
The budget passed, yay, thank you.
Are we running, starting to run over and anything?
Oh yeah, we're high,
Fuel.
yeah.
Fuel,
Postage,
postage, okay, just
Post?
postage.
yeah, our budget was $25, or we're
Already.
1,000% of our budget.
Yeah.
And so then we need to, Zach and I need to sign the audit letter.
Yep.
It's going to be starting June 21st. So that is, their commitment to start the audit.
Just dated today, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
She just sent it to me today. So we're starting to prepare for the town audit, and, so Linda needs to meet, the auditor's name is Linda, and she needs to meet, thank you, needs to meet with one select board member, on June 21st, and she leaves at 4. If that does not work, you can do it over the phone. So,
Which day?
I just need to know a
June
date.
21st.
June 24th, 21st, she'll be here 8:30 to 4.
So sometime during that time frame.
Yeah, or you can do it by phone before the 21st.
I could meet with her, I'll just put it on the schedule to meet.
On what time? I need to tell her a
You
time.
said 8:30 to 4.
I know, but she wants to know a time.
You don't have to be here the whole.
I don't know, whatever time, whatever, I'll be available, so what is that day? What is?
Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday?
It's usually 5-minute conversation.
I'm not available that day.
So,
that time frame,
like, so 9 o'clock.
Okay. Harold, she wants to meet with you. What's your time?
There.
What's your time preference? I wrote noon, but if you want. just
Early is
tell.
better.
Okay, so.
6:30.
We'll do 8:30.
6 is good.
No, she's here at 8:30, so
I would
you'll
say
start.
9:05.
You'll do 9, he'll do 9:05 and you'll do 9. Okay? 9:05,
It's only gonna be 5 minutes, so.
and then she meets with me.
And
You gotta
that's,
send me a reminder on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
anything else?
Yeah, just a couple more things.
Okay, no, you're good, okay.
There's a closeout agreement, it's in the folder, Aaron, there was another email that
did
didn't
see
get
that.
completed.
Yep.
So you do need to fully submit the closeout agreement.
I'm gonna change 2 things.
Zach, there's the VLCT, that passive grant money that I talked about, that we're eligible for $2,500.
Yeah.
I sent it in, cause he was telling me, you gotta hurry, cause the money goes quick. So I just sent in for the 2 chairs. He called me and said that you need to send more. He gave some more suggestions of a flammable cabinet for fire department, a blade lift tool for the highway department, and he sent the correct chairs that he felt were ergonomic for the office. So I have a new one that you need to sign.
Okay.
That changes it all a little bit.
Gotcha.
So was the flammable cabinet and the thing on that, or he just sent suggestions to purchase?
It's on this
It's
now.
on that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if we get, we won't purchase a thing
Yep.
until we know we get it.
Yep.
And it might be over just a little bit, like, I think $500 over, but that will be split between fire department, highway, and office.
Yep.
So it's really, if we get it, we're only doing it if we get it,
Yeah.
so that's.
And that's 100% match as well.
Yeah, 2,500.
Yeah.
He's very optimistic, but he really wants the paperwork soon, so.
ASAP. Okay.
Okay, I guess that's it,
You sure?
I think.
Okay.
Town clerk.
Hello.
Town clerk,
Moving
Miss
it
Terry,
along.
town clerk, yep.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's the dog warrant.
Let me get
You
some on the
signed
list.
June 1st.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Then you gotta sign the title. No, you
Everyone
don't get the old cruiser.
sign that.
I'm on the list.
You better have to be running around the cruiser.
What's that?
You gotta, you're in the cellar.
Just,
That's the title for the cruiser to be sold,
Sold.
Charles.
alright. Yeah, there's that.
This is,
Better get on
Dan
that.
and I worked a little on these. To notify someone of their first complaint
Right.
for a dog issue.
Okay,
It's not their first warning, it's just to notify them that a complaint has been
Because
given
of
to
the
the
problem
town.
we ran into last year
yep,
of not notifying the person first, so.
yep. Okay. Okay, okay. All right. Do you need all of these guys look?
I just wanted to look at it.
Okay,
You can give it to me after.
yep, yep, sounds good.
I will, I was gonna wait to open for this, but I'll just do it now. The delinquent tax, I was gonna do an update.
Okay,
So we're down to people owing the town $25,000. That's it.
that's good.
Yeah. It is really good.
Amazing.
Never seen it so low.
In today's economy, that's amazing.
Yep, and there's, this program that's going around that's helping some of the people. I've had 4 people's taxes paid in full. And I send this little sheet off the internet where they can go and sign up for it to everybody every month to get them to do it. So I'm hoping even more will keep doing it. Because I just talked to Jeff Taylor and he said that's huge to have so little bit owed to the town. So
Yeah.
the town's doing great for that, which is nice.
Well, the delinquent tax collector is certainly doing
Yeah.
great.
She does a good job.
That's a good job.
The tax collector. Collector of delinquent taxes. Correct. Correct.
And
The constable.
Yes.
I think that was all my papers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
Dorothy,
If we're delinquent,
Assistant
we're-
Assessor.
Okay.
So, we got the abstract filed, as of today, and all the notices have gone out for change of appraisal and the, current use update for the year, so everything's gone in the mail.
Excellent.
So, now the games start.
You start working towards that audit now, Dorothy, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
she's coming probably on the 13th, for the first day to go over the parcels, the 15 parcels, and then she'll come back another day and we'll do roadside visits of action. So she's gonna be doing, so we'll have the 15 parcels, and then she's gonna be looking at comparables near them.
Yeah.
So the ones that are like, forested or maybe not forested, with a house, without a house. So that's what they're gonna be comparing with.
Yep.
Okay.
And hopefully John Westinghouse will be able to come for that day, and then after that, there'll be a day when probably she and I will just go and do a roadside visit of the ones, the
Drive around.
15. So, I don't know then what the end, how it processes from there, I don't know.
Okay.
By the end of the summer, you'll know.
I will.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Thanks, Dorothy. Fire and Fast.
I do not have any updates. No, we do have a new licensed EMT.
Yeah, I saw that on
Yeah.
Facebook. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep.
Good,
Um,
excellent.
Yeah.
Was there did we have I saw an email go around about a request from Fire about the approval of the use of their reserve funds for something? Did they
I
submit anything?
Oh, they asked if
That
they needed pre-approval.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
We
okay.
answered that.
Oh, so there wasn't an actual.
over
it was just
$500.
a technical question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think reserve funds require
Even more.
we have
Yeah.
to
even
vote.
more. You have to have special paper to sign. It's,
Yeah.
it has to fit within the criteria of the reserves.
Which
So
Wade should know that, because he was.
that's what my response was.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Library. Deb, do you have anything?
No,
Nope. I know that they're doing an event on June 10th in conjunction with Rural Edge. I just signed up for it. So they're doing property improvement work around the building and on the park. So
What do
So
you
Wilford would be very
I
happy
don't
to
know.
have the flowers.
I don't know.
Flowers.
But it's going to be, there's like lunch from Sarkey's and an informational session in the afternoon about stuff. So
Nice.
it'll be a good event.
Sure you're not buying a timeshare?
I don't think so.
Yes.
In Groton.
Okay, we're gonna stay on track, 3 minutes.
Zoning administrator.
Just want to make sure you check and approve the new permits that Perry did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
I think we
good.
look.
Do we
Do we
need
need
to
a
vote?
We're using them.
I will make a motion to approve, no, we gave it last week, we said we'd look at it.
Oh, okay.
Make a motion to approve the new zoning permits.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And I'll get them on the website, because I'm getting old ones and new
Oh,
ones.
I know.
So, any discussion? No, I think they look great.
I think they look
Great
good.
work.
You did a great job.
Yeah, Carrie, good job. Dan, good job. All those in favor of approving the new zoning permit,
Say aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, we're good. Health officer, I did finally find the email that you sent me and responded to the complaint about smoking marijuana. It's not a legal issue. That's, like Dan said at the last meeting, that's a tenant needs to speak to their landlord, and the landlord needs to follow up if it's something like that. It's a nuisance issue that needs to be dealt with, you know, civilly, not through the health officer, so that's good. Anything, I didn't see anything else for health officer
I
stuff.
have to do it's just a walkthrough for an individual. They're gonna change use on the house, that's it.
Okay, cool. Maintenance? I think we're good.
Robert came and put.
Oh, yeah, Robert seeded the-
And seed and hay. So-
Yeah, that looked good.
Dorothy?
So, the assessor's office has no emergency light. So
Okay.
if the door's closed, I have nothing but my little tiny flashlight.
Hmm.
So I'd like to ask to have one of the emergency exit lights put in that office.
Seems like something passive should have caught on your lock.
They didn't.
They cut on the fact that there's no exit sign, so now I have an exit sign that I can't see.
So you have,
I'm feeling very safe.
so you currently, there's no
Illuminated.
illuminated
Yeah.
light.
No, there's nothing.
Not like that, okay.
And
Okay.
it's already happened once where the lights went off, and I'm in 2 rooms of darkness.
So let's make it happen.
schedule.
I would just say, let's get a hold of
Yeah.
the just electrical,
Yeah.
electrician should be able to do it, so.
Tim Corey.
Tim Corey.
There you go.
works for us, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds good, Dorothy. Don't want you to trip and fall, especially in an emergency. That would not
All
be
the
good.
power goes out.
Yeah.
Especially when you got all your letters out now.
I did hear Mr. Smith said that at Taekwondo, one of the Modine heaters
Yes.
was squeaking.
Yes. I heard it during the election all
Yeah.
day.
So I don't know if we have Garrett, that'd be something to have Garrett look at, I
The
think.
weird thing is it's not running.
Yeah, I don't know if just a hanger has come loose and it's sort of, so I don't know if we planning on having Garrett come by at all or.
Well, I also noticed that the slats on one of them were pretty much
Gone.
missing.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
It's another issue, but.
Yeah.
I think it's the one above the,
The
outside door.
ramp, I
Yeah.
think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other.
So, well, actually, maybe, yeah. We have- So that just goes under maintenance.
Plumbing and heating.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, I'll call Garrett. see if
Well,
he's available.
Okay.
I'll,
Is that what
yeah.
you want?
no, I was gonna say I could take a look at it and see if it's something that just needs to be.
Okay, so
And
you wanna
then-
wait?
I would wait, yeah. It's not the middle of the heating season right now anyways, so.
All right, okay.
Cause there's a step ladder still upstairs on the stage, isn't there?
I think it's in where
No,
the
it's not.
tables are. I saw it yesterday, this weekend.
That giant one's not
Yeah.
laying there anymore.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, but it's in on the tables.
How did anyone get it in
On
there?
the beams, in the tables. I saw
Huh.
it.
Well, if
Good
me,
luck getting it out. I don't.
me and
know
6
how to
other
get it
rugged
out.
guys can get the ladder out, I'll take a look at it.
Give me a
Tucked
call.
way in there.
Dan, you come on, and I'll get it out of
I'm glad they did.
Me
it.
too.
It's tripping.
there. All right, anything else for maintenance? I think sounds good. And the flower thing's all taken care of. IT, anything for IT? I know that Dorothy's printer's fixed,
Mhm.
so that's good.
Excellent.
Planning commission, anything new? I think
We're
they,
just working on another subdivision.
gotcha. Okay.
Another subdivision, is it? Up at the pond still, a different one?
Right over here, Bud Bowden.
Oh,
Okay. All right, summer select board schedule, June to August. I put June to August on there, but,
So you signed this last week, but it was after the fact.
yeah,
It was after.
yeah, but wanted to make sure we talked about it
Yes.
this meeting, but, so I don't think we need to do anything but say, I think
Say
we're gonna
the
change,
date.
we're gonna change the schedule for the summer, so June and July, we're only gonna hold one meeting on the first Thursday of the month, just because of summer and vacations, and I know I'm gonna be working harder because I've got less people working for vacations and.
I got plenty of stuff going on, yeah.
So, I think with the budget being passed and with a lot of other things, seeming to be moving in the right direction right now, we'll do that. So we will have a meeting on, the next meeting will be, well, today, June 2nd. The next meeting will be July 7th. And then the following meeting will be the first Thursday in August. So,
August 4th.
August 4th.
August 4th.
There you go. 8/4. Okay, all right. So we'll make that an official announcement that we're gonna do that. Okay, open to the public and other business. Yes, Miss Lisa.
I wanted to say that the rec committee had a meeting last week and approved the upgrade of the town banners. I think I explained last time that we've had many issues and the
Yeah.
company is going to upgrade them, and we only have to pay for the upgraded material, which is $167. It's all been, it's in the folder to pay. The only thing the rec requested was, so this started back in 2017 when there was no town property maintenance. There was no budget line for town property whatsoever. So the rec wanted to do beautification, so they said, we'll pay for it. We'll pay for the new banners to beautify the town.
Right.
So they just requested going forward to not have this banner on their plate because it really has nothing to do with rec. So they would want it to be considered under town property maintenance. And it makes sense, but I felt like, let's just keep going with this set of orders. Let's see how these hold up.
Yeah.
And so,
We could,
so,
yeah, or
Okay.
we could give little Nerf balls to everybody to throw at the signs, and then it would be a wreck thing,
yeah,
right?
right. And the town yard sale was, I think it went.
It went good.
It went pretty good. We had 4 different families, and 6 to 8 tables, and we did it 8 to 1, and we got out just in time before the rain. And it seemed like there was always 3 people, like, shopping, so it wasn't vacant long, so, thank you very much.
I think that town yard sale is one of those things, if it happens every year, it'll just get
Yeah, bigger and bigger, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And I sold a lot of playing cards for some reason.
I sold big
No
stuff.
idea why.
So that was good.
Yeah, you hoed out, jeez. Thought your whole house was for sale.
Yeah. That's next.
All right, other topics for open to the public and other business.
Can I ask what's going on in the cemeteries?
Oh, I did have something
How's
for,
that going?
fine.
Can you make sure that the brush, there's like that pink stone right in front?
Yes, yeah.
It needs to be cut, wasn't cut last year.
Yeah. Well, it didn't get cut until you hollered at Chris to cut it last time. So.
Which we did have some discussion on, what was the letter from the mowing,
yeah, I got the.
Okay, yep, that's fine, but I will, if the subdivision got brought to the planning commission, right?
Yes,
Not before the select board, because there's a planning commission.
that's right.
Cemetery issues should get brought to the cemetery commission,
Yes,
because there's a cemetery commission,
yes,
Yeah.
and not the select board.
that's right.
So, that's all taken care of.
The select board passes a hearing
Well,
official
but
after.
the only reason,
like there wasn't a response or
well, the
they
only
were-
reason I kind of was interested in it was because we have to vote to approve the bids and stuff like that for the mowing, and it seems like there was a misunderstanding with, who was it that with Chris
The
Bruce?
mower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the mower. But I mean, just looking through it, I mean, it lays
You
out,
actually-
it lays out everything the way it should be, but
Yes, and I think,
I think maybe they misunderstood that there was another,
yes, there was a
Another cemetery
misunderstanding
behind?
on their part.
so, just, yes.
Last meeting, you said you were gonna talk to Ben about doing the Scott Memorial. Did he
That
consider?
is,
Something else happened.
no, the
Wade.
Scott Memorial is being mowed by Wade Johnson.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he's gonna do that? Okay, I know you said you might talk.
Historical
That's right, I saw
Okay,
that.
I sent an email out to the Historical Society. Brent Smith is vice president. He spoke with Wade Johnson. Within days, it
Right,
was
cool.
done.
Sweet.
Excellent.
That's great. I think, Wade has a passion for Civil War history for sure.
Absolutely, it was
and-
Yep.
perfect.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect fit for that.
Yeah,
good.
You go by.
So anyway, just, I would say for this cemetery issue, my suggestion would just be, to the cemetery commission would be, make sure that person that's gonna mow knows that they have to mow
Put their mow.
the back cemetery too. It's all
I would-
part of the package deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an excellent, I would say, they came to that conclusion on their own.
Yep.
But it's nice of you to tell them that.
That's just, just a suggestion from me.
Didn't he tell us?
I have one more thing.
Yes.
I think I should have said this under my treasurer, but I just want confirmation about the drainage project and the broadband project, because we've talked about the ARPA money is fully going to the drainage, but then when we talk broadband, it has been said that we're gonna use ARPA money. Well, which is it?
So I would say that, my intent is to use the ARPA funds for the broadband infrastructure. And then, we got $150,000 that was set aside from the general fund for the infrastructure project.
Plus the 200 from Leahy.
Plus the 200 from Leahy. But the other thing that I had a conversation with Mike Geis about this is finding other potential grant funding sources that can help kind of make up that difference that we're using for the broadband. And he said he would be interested in exploring those options,
So it's 41,000 that we're setting aside for.
Correct.
the
So,
broadband.
yes.
Just wanna make
Yep,
sure
yep,
I'm.
so-
Broadband has to be ARPA money.
Correct. The broadband has to be ARPA money to get the
Okay.
3-to-1 match, because it's every dollar we spend gets multiplied by 3.
All right.
So that's, yeah.
Just
Does that
want
make
that
sense?
confirmed, because.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Because we haven't talked about, that
We haven't really.
Yeah.
pulling the one,
Yeah.
Yep.
a
Gotcha.
little bit of money out of ARPA for broadband.
Correct.
That we'll have to make
And
up for.
I just think it's the right
I
investment to
think,
make.
yeah, it's the right investment to make, but at the 3-to-1 match,
Like,
it was like
Yeah.
foolish not to.
And
Well-
that's just the dollars match. There's still like what he said was it's like almost $1 million, like $900,000
Yeah.
in equipment and everything that's going into this. And with the 3-to-1 match, even then we're paying for totally with the funding is about a third of what it really is, going to cost, which is fantastic. So,
Okay, thank you. I just needed clarification.
anything else for open to the public? I just have one thing to say that is related to budget vote stuff. So, following the informational meeting on the 23rd, until the vote, I had put signs on my lawn that said, please vote yes for the budget, which is, good. I also, following the budget, knowing that it was approved, put an additional sign up in my yard that said, thank you voters, for passing the budget, or something along those lines. And it was removed from my property. And it's a little disappointing.
There was one blowing around,
There's one blowing around.
in the
Well,
road.
somebody pulled it off because it was folded up, like when I found it, because it was off of the sign, it was folded up.
Because I
So it
did
was
see
not-
one.
I figured it was run over, my neighbor said that she thought it got blown off, but when we found it, it was definitely folded in half, folded in half, folded in half, and thrown in the road. So I'm just saying it. Nobody's gonna say that they did it or whatnot. I know somebody's probably upset because the budget got passed, but it's kind of disappointing that, that would be done to, if people didn't want the budget to be passed and voted no, that again, it's part of the political process. And, as I put on my Facebook post about it, is I appreciate even the folks that voted no for the budget because you participated in the public, in the government process. So anyway, I just wanted to make a statement about that. What's that?
Borrow one of my big dogs, it'll never happen again.
Yeah. I would say my big dog would help, but she just. She barks and then she licks you. Doesn't do you any good. Okay, all right. Anything else for open to the public? All right, set the agenda for our meeting on July 7th. We'll keep law enforcement on there.
If that guy can come.
If he can come, that would be great. And then what kind of fell off just because we had a full agenda was the junk and trash stuff that we talked about. I did find the electronic copy that I had of that, so I can forward that around and we can put that on the agenda, just to make sure that we cover it.
Just want to put policies on an agenda for the summer. I know that could eat up some time. We usually do it in April, policy review.
Okay.
You want to put
Start
that-
at the beginning, is that how you wanna do it? Okay.
Policy review?
Yeah, we usually do it yearly. Usually, like I said, it's done in April, which obviously didn't get done this year.
Because of other things.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll add that, I can put that
So
on.
with the meetings just being once a month for the next 2 months, you just have to ask the select board to be due diligent of checking in with the office.
Yep.
Because things need to be paid, not once a
Yep.
month. They need to be paid and signed. And
Yep, yep.
questions come up. No, please,
Understood.
please, check in.
I check in weekly.
Okay.
Very weekly.
Very
Thank
weekly.
you.
All right,
I don't
we're
mind
gonna,
if you check in once a month for signature.
I'll move forward with, I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, we'll sign all the orders after we're done. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everybody, for coming this evening.